Hello, everybody! Oh my goodness. Good morning / afternoon / evening / whatever time it is. I am always amazed with the amount of countries that are repped in our chat. So thanks everybody for joining. Hopefully you have whatever beverage is appropriate for the time of day that you're in. I am Maddy Legere. I am a PM on the Xamarin team, and I am one of your two regular hosts for the Xamarin Community Standup, along with my friend Dave.
Hey, everybody. Dave Ortinau, Program Manager for .NET MAUI and Xamarin. And we have a special guest, Brandon.
Hey, everybody. Brandon Minnick here. I also work at Microsoft, but as a developer advocate, so focusing in all .NET, Xamarin, Azure fun stuff. And yeah, Maddy and Dave brought me on the show today to chat about some of the awesome work that we've been doing in the community and showing off some code.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yep. So Brandon also is apparently one of the latest contributors, official contributors to the Xamarin Community Toolkit, which we talked about last month. So pretty cool.
That's right. I think it, and yeah, like being a maintainer now, it's I'm starting to feel the weight of the world on my shoulders. Yeah. There's important decisions happening every day.
You've been a maintainer for a long time. You've had your your helpers out there in your different libraries, so this is not new
certainly.
to you.
No, but the scale. Oh man, thinking about like this library is going to be used by millions of developers. Like, it's got to be good.
Including me. I don't know how to use anything, so that's a big win.
Yeah, it's a default in all of my templates now that I use for starting up new applications. It's like, I don't want to build something without it. It's got all the good, useful stuff.
Yeah, it really does. Anyways, watch last month if you're interested in learning more about the community toolkit. We had Gerald, the best. He's in the chat today, so he can answer all your questions too. If this is your first community stand-up, welcome. This is our monthly shenanigans in public. We go over some blogs, go over some pull requests, and then we always have a special guest on from either internal Microsoft, which Brandon is, or the community, which also Brandon is. So we're kind of hitting two birds with one stone with this one. And we talk about whatever cool things people are working on. Dave will probably give a bit of a MAUI update. I know everybody's interested in that. Yeah, but as always, there's a bunch of stuff and we're really excited. So let's get to it. First and foremost, I'm going to copy paste this link. The URL list, posting it in the chat. It's sending to all the places. We're streaming to the .NET YouTube, the Xamarin YouTube. We're streaming to Periscope, which every month I say, I don't even know what Periscope is, and it's still true, and Twitch. Very exciting. And then I am going to put up the banner as well, so you can just look at this beautiful thing. And this is the list of all the links we will be going through today. So the first one is Brandon's GitHub for GitTrends. And there's another blog at the bottom about it as well, and a PR that Brandon put into Community Toolkit. We'll talk about that all later. Let's go through some of these blogs real quick. So, okay, interesting month. I think everybody is having pandemic blues. I think we're coming up to the year mark for most folks because every blog this month was very practical that I found. It was very like, just do this one thing and your life is going to be so much easier, or like, don't do this thing or your life is going to be miserable. And I was like, you know what? That's exactly the kind of mindset I'm in right now, so it's good. The first one on the first prototype Medium. Also, I'm gonna lose my access soon, so it's all right. At least the next stand-up's in April. Selecting fonts during iOS and Android development. So I have made this mistake before, where I have put a font in my app that is licensed, and I have not paid for it. And then someone's been like, that's a font that someone made, and you're supposed to pay for it. And I'm like, what? And then if my apps ever got more than just me downloading it, I could very much be liable for quite a bit of money. But there's a bunch of open source or fonts with free licenses out there. So this is a kind of a good overview. I like this. It was a very quick read through of like, how to kind of briefly check like font licensing stuff and, how to avoid licensing issues. Big fan of that. And then some links. So Defont, fonts.google, those are things I've used before and I've liked. And of course, use embedded fonts because they're awesome. I've been using them more and more, and they're so helpful. It's putting the font file once in your Xamarin.Forms project and you make it a little alias and you just type it in Xamarin.Forms and it's there. It's perfect.
It's so easy.
I
remember making custom renderers back in the day for just adding in a font, and that was so painful because you have to know the font family name, and sometimes you're just given the font file, and I had a whole debug little method that would just scroll through all the fonts that were available on iOS and Android and print them to the screen. It was very, very painful back in the day, but embedded fonts, love them. Never looking back.
Easy peasy. I'm a big fan. I just saw a comment in the chat too. One URL list, which has all the URL lists. I think I'm going to make that happen after the stand-up. That's a good idea. The URL list to end them all. We've been doing these since, let's see. I can tell you when we've been doing these since. December 2019 was the first time I made links for the Xamarin Community Standup. So we've been doing it at least since then. There's a lot of goodies in there. Cool. All right, next one. Another, do this thing in your life is going to be easier. Every time I need to make a snippet in Visual Studio, I Google, how do I make a snippet for Visual Studio? And then I follow the instructions. The problem is I always forget while I'm typing code that I should just make a snippet for things. I have to type a zillion times because it's way easier. I just don't. This is great, though. This is a bindable property snippet. bprop tab. Bam. This is it. This is a snippet file. Look at this. Just this. You put this stuff in here. You put it in your Visual Studio program files folder in the snippets way deep in there. And then you can just, that's it. That's the whole blog. I was like, this is great. This is the kind of content I need right now in 2021. I need it to be short, sweet, go for it, and helpful. So, yeah, I'm trying to think. I know Dave is a big snippet user. So
yeah, especially for bindable properties.
Yeah.
that one is always difficult to remember, but yeah, there are certainly some things we're doing in .NET MAUI, so you don't have to remember so many snippets.
What?
Oh, fancy.
Or you can just do it the way I do it and just go find one I've created before, copy paste it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Carry all your mistakes forward. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Also, by the way, I don't know if anyone notices that I'm using the Edge vertical tabs.
Yeah.
They're very nice. I also learned that if you do, I think Alt tab. Nope, not Alt tab. Fuck. I mean, shoot. I need a bleep track. I'm sorry.
They're going to put us on a delay here.
I know they are. Sorry. There's a shortcut that I always forget, but every time I remember it, it's great because it just switches to your next tab for you.
Yes.
And I really thought it was Alt tab, but Alt tab is not that. So I don't know what I'm doing, but it's fine. It's fine.
You're such a Microsoft fangirl with all of your look at the cool new Microsoft browser thing.
I am. I've even got my old hoodie on.
Oh, there you go.
So living up the brand repping today. I still can't get an Xbox Series X anywhere, but that's okay. I love the company. Here's another good old practical one. Oh, is it Control Tab? Oh, thank you. My God. It's that easy. Pop-up validation. You have a pop-up, and then you want to make sure that the thing that people are typing into the pop-up, is good. So yeah, there's some view model work here with validating commands and passwords, usernames and passwords. Oh my goodness, I think I need more caffeine. And then of course updating, the specific Android view. And then I think iOS is down here too. Oh my goodness, so much code. Yep. Which is, pretty cool. It tells you quickly what's valid, what's invalid. A little bit of custom stuff here, but I always like the blogs that make custom code or, a little bit more intricate code look really attainable. I don't know. I feel like I could follow this blog and copy paste it and actually make this stuff work. And usually when I know I have to do something custom, I lose my mind. And this also hit it home this month because my downstairs neighbor is a graduate student CS major. She did law. And then she was like, nope, I'm going to go into CS. And she was working on a native Android app and trying to figure out what a pop-up was called in the control gallery. And she texted me and she goes, what is a pop-up called? And I had to Google it for 10 minutes because I was like, what does Android call pop-ups? and I can't even remember it. It was like alert dialogue, I think. And I was like, what do we call it? I don't know. But yeah, then I was like, Xamarin.Forms is great because if she ever needs iOS, she would have to do this all over again, and that would be miserable. Yeah, search bar for vertical tabs, snack bars. Oh my God, snack bars in the community toolkit, amazing. I love snack bars. Okay, grouping with dynamic data in Xamarin.Forms, part 3. So I believe we showed either part 1 or 2 in the last community stand-up with Rendy. Part 2 was filtering and sorting, which was really cool. But this is just kind of a blog series about how you have dynamic data, you make a list, and then you can get through really easily. So I think about like password managers when I think of this stuff. It's got a category often. It's got, excuse me. You want to filter, you want to search, you want to make sure that you can find your passwords really quickly. So this one's about grouping. So in this one, you can see that the food has a category, a genre, if you will, of food. So it's just creating a class, adding it to the list, and then just making sure that it's in the list view as well. So, or the collection view if you're using that. So pretty simple. Bam.
That's another one I remember struggling with back in the day. Look how easy it is now.
I know.
I remember spending days trying to get that working on iOS and Android.
It's so great. It's just like, add a class. All right. Just like add a few fields here and there. All right. We're good to go. Next. Like, geez, we're making writing these blogs too easy for you guys. Kidding. Dave, I think this one is going to be a fan. You're going to be a fan of this one. A scalable style library in Xamarin.Forms by Luis Matos. So this is about making sure that, your app branding feels consistent across different apps. So the good example here is like Uber driver, Uber Eats, blah, 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 blah. Like you want the buttons and the fonts and the color scheme and everything to kind of look the same across all of those. So there's all these different ways that he has, like you can look at the material design library as an example, but yep. You want to work on creating styles, either explicit or implicit, depending on how you want them to go through, propagate through your app. We have a Xamarin.Forms 101 on that. Of course, you can override them. Of course, they can inherit from other ones. I know this is how the shell template looks right now. You can have classes for them. You can use CSS if you want. You got resource dictionaries, all these things. This is kind of like the very tangible strategy. So, copy paste. Yep. Okay. You can also create a shared project. That's pretty cool. Create a library that can be configured, which I think is a really cool idea. So it's like a library you pull in, and then you're just like, let me just make sure all these, my shade of blue is slightly different when it's an Uber driver versus an Uber customer or whatever. And then kind of how you actually go and do that in practice. So pretty cool. I'm all about reusing things. I mean, Brandon just said he likes to copy paste things from old projects and stick them into new projects. And that's basically what this is. So yeah. And of course, merge resource dictionaries and merged resources and all those things and styles are going to work beautifully with MAUI. So
Yep. We're going to include a default style sheet essentially that gives you a very nice starting point, unifies a couple of things across platforms. I've been building a control gallery that we'll share with everybody soon. I mean, it's a control gallery. Don't get too excited. But but it starts with a nice .NET branded style sheet. And styles are super powerful. I've been using style classes to compose my styles recently. And I'm like, why haven't I been doing this more? Instead of explicitly calling static resources by key names.
It's pretty smart. I like that. I'm excited to see how that turns out. The .NET purple is great. I know you can all see the background of this, but it's a fun, bright, kind of obtrusive, but really enjoyable purple.
Very royal.
Royal's a good word for it. That's a good way to put it. All right. Sharpnado got a bump. Love some Sharpnado. First of all, this is a set of tabs that says tabs. I think that's very cool. But you've got badges, you've got the underline, you've got the badges have both words and numbers. I thought this was a teardrop. And then I was like, oh no, it's just a tab. And of course, horizontal list views. So feel free to check out the Sharpnado PRs. Sharpnado is an example of an amazing community project that, we have so many people using and contributing back to, and is such an integral part of so many apps nowadays. And I really love this thing. So yeah, definitely check it out if you haven't. And of course, thanks to everybody who contributes to it, because it is the best.
The shaking. Oh, I hadn't seen that one yet.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, I've used Sharknado
so
in
good.
several apps, in particular for the shadows. Shadows are really useful.
Oh, yeah.
I used it for the tabs in, I think we used it for the tabs in the Xamarin TV app that we showcased when the Duo SDK first came out. So yeah, it's great stuff.
It is great stuff. All right, Control Tab, the last blog. I did it. This is by Ben CE 960206. It's on this blog, which is a cool blog. I like the theme of this. Very simple. I like the orange. This one's just about saving and reading objects in JSON. It is a standard. This is how you should do JSON. No frills. Serialize it and deserialize it. And this is using Newtonsoft. So I've started to use Microsoft JSON, or whatever we call the first-party JSON one, in some things. It's pretty good.
System.text.json.
Oh, yes. System text JSON. But I have been, switching between still. But there's a nice plugin that just does it all for you. So pretty easy.
Yeah. Sometimes I wish the Xamarin Essentials had almost like a typed add or save and get method for the plugin. So you can just put in whatever type you want. It'll serialize it to a string. When it brings it back out, it'll deserialize it. Because I end up doing that a lot in my code too, when I want to save a blob of data.
Have you used Flurl? FLURL?
No,
it's an HTTP library helper essentially, and but you just tell it what type you're downloading from the web, and it pulls the JSON down, and you don't have to do anything else. You automatically have your typed objects. But I'm wondering if that's similar to what you're talking about, but for local storage.
So actually, I use Refit. Similar idea. It automatically does the deserialization for you.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that's kind of the idea I was thinking for saving stuff to disk. So you want to save the user's current state when they close the app. Then you want to save this blob. And because the only tricky part I found is when you deserialize something that doesn't exist, what happens? And you have to sometimes catch an exception or two and return null or something like that. But not too difficult, but also just not baked in, so not super intuitive either.
Yeah.
Huh. Flurl looks very cool.
Yeah, Refit's super popular. Flurl I love because of the fluent syntax, and it's just I feel like it's a superpower when I'm using it. So
oh, fancy. I mean, it looks like there's got quite a few contributors, including Hanselman. So
yeah, it's been around for a while.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. I'm gonna send it over to Dave whenever you're ready. You good?
Yeah, go ahead.
Whoa!
Yeah. Let's start with some .NET MAUI updates. Today is March the 4th. So I wanted to kind of catch everybody up on where we are and what's coming up, what you'll be getting in .NET 6 Preview 2, which will be coming out shortly. So in .NET 6 Preview 1, you got the first look at .NET 6 Android and iOS SDKs. So you can stitch some things together with the installer for the runtime and the SDKs and pull down some samples from our sample repo, and you can run that. You can find all that information on the .NET blog. So what's coming up in the next release? So first of all, the namespace has changed to Microsoft.MAUI. We considered many namespaces. There were lots of discussions, and we landed here. We felt like it gave it the gravitas of, hey, this is a Microsoft product. Microsoft's invested in it. You can have that confidence. It's also cool. So that's where everything is going to live. You probably won't think about it too much, but you'll need to access it occasionally. In terms of Preview 2, handler work. So this is the porting of existing control renderers over to the new architecture, which is interface-based. It inverts the dependency between the control and the framework. If you want more information about that, go up to our repository. There's several presentations on the README that you can go learn more. But we have partial work for all these controls, and I think the slider is a completed control. So partial meaning that some of the properties are currently there and more properties are coming. We're doing them kind of in smaller bite sizes because we can review them more thoroughly and we can improve the quality of the whole product that way, as opposed to taking everything a control does and reviewing it all at once. You're going to get fatigued as a reviewer, and we want that to happen. So right now, there's partial control support for those things. Other controls are available via shims. And so in the samples that we'll be publishing with Preview 2, and I'll do some, follow-up blogging and some YouTubing probably, I'll provide additional information about how you can actually leverage those things. Preview 2 is still a very foundational release. So if you're looking to really enjoy the release and build apps with it, I would recommend still waiting for Preview 3 and 4, but this gives you an idea of kind of what our progress is right now. Mac Catalyst, the ability for us to take UIKit-based things and go to the Mac desktop, is now running on Mono 64-bit and ARM64. And that's exciting. So that's wonderful progress. And we're currently integrating that into our .NET MAUI templates and samples for Preview 2. And then testing Core CLR first bits for Mac OS. I think I heard this morning that almost all of the tests are passing. And so now it's just a matter of working through the remainder of the tests and making them green. So that's looking really good. All signs are very positive about using Core CLR as the runtime for macOS, which will give you, I think the important part here for desktop developers, or for all developers in general, is it gives you the kind of debugging experience and the tooling integration that you are used to from building desktop apps, which is slightly different than what you would be used to from doing Android and iOS. WinUI 3 progress continues forward. So we have .NET 6 enabled builds, which essentially use the .NET 5 work that they already have, that the Windows team has done. So those are projections that run on .NET 6. Everything seems to be looking really good there. There's additional work to happen to enable all the packaging and experiences for WinUI 3 in .NET MAUI, but this is a first step. And so we're excited to see that progress, and we'll have more to report on that later. The full WinUI 3 support and landing Windows desktop will come a bit later in the preview cycles. So you're going to see a lot of Android and iOS, of course, because that's where we come from. And then WinUI 3 will come. And another reason being that WinUI 3 is still in their own beta cycle previewing. And so they haven't gone GA yet. So, there's a lot of things happening in parallel. Single project in Preview 2 will land a bunch of work. Most of these are on the SDK side of things, and we're kind of bringing together NuGet packages and work that we have in disparate places for things like Resizetizer, which does your app icons and your images. So that is going to be available in Preview 2 through the SDK. The font embedding work, which we were celebrating just a little bit earlier, is findings. We're doing some improvements. The team is doing some improvements to rework that and make it more integrated and use more of the native wiring to get the fonts working, which will make that more stable. So there are some edge cases where font embedding right now, with the way it works, can get funky and not work. So we're excited to see how that comes together. The multi-targeting support is working, and we have a sample. So you can do a .NET new. You will be able to do a .NET new that starts a single project and be able to build it and run it with a little bit of effort. All the tooling related things to be able to do it from within IDEs is in various states of completeness right now. It's all very early preview stuff. So that's another reason to wait for Preview 3 and Preview 4, April and May timeframe, if you really want to not cry. You are a brave soul like Brandon, and you want to go. You want to go be adventurous out there on the frontiers. Now's a good time for you. ICU is localization work. The iOS work is nearly complete or complete now, and Android, because of the way things work, we're going to continue forward with the strategy we had before, which is using the Java ICU system that is in the underlying operating system on Android. And then this is really exciting news. I think this is my last update here, but the linker stripping work. So .NET developers are probably very familiar with linking. This is where we optimize the app so that any code that's not being used is stripped out. We are seeing a 1 megabyte reduction right now, purely from the BCL and the runtime side of things. This does not yet include any optimizations that we're making inside of .NET MAUI, which Xamarin.Forms in general is not very linker friendly. So there's quite a bit of room the engineering team feels that we're going to be able to gain there. And so 1 megabyte to start. Reducing your app size, which has always been a pretty common feedback item on all of our surveys. Hey, we want smaller APKs, smaller IPAs, please. For some apps, doesn't matter, but for other apps, it becomes more critical. So that's exciting. All right. Oh, I did have one more bullet point. I thought there was a little extra white space at the bottom of the slide there. So in terms of foundational app level work inside of the .NET MAUI world, we have added iWindow and a MAUI app host. These things are being reworked to enable the multi-windowing experience that wasn't necessary in Xamarin.Forms, as well as to provide a place for the host builder pattern. So more of that will become available, and we'll talk more about that as we ship Preview 2 with some templates and kind of navigate our way through that. Although those things are changing for new apps in .NET MAUI, we're also being very aware and cognizant of all the Xamarin.Forms apps coming forward, and we'll make sure that those continue to work as they do today. So you can start to take advantage of Host Builder and multi-windowing when you need it, but you aren't forced to use these things. So as we introduce new things like that, I don't want to freak out the existing developers who are like, well, wait a second, my Forms app doesn't know about Host Builder and things like this. We're keeping that in mind.
What do you mean by multi-window, Dave?
What do I mean by multi-window? Well, on desktop, you have the ability to pop out other windows.
Oh,
right? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So the complexity there becomes what is the context? What's the navigation stack for that particular window? How are you sharing information between two windows? Because they're technically still part of the same app. It becomes useful not just for desktop, but for also Android devices like the Surface Duo, where you could actually have two instances, not just one app spanning, but you could have two instances doing different things. And still sharing information, dragging and dropping, and all those sorts of things. So, yeah.
Cool. And who knows if it'll come true, but I'm seeing rumors that Apple is also working on their first folding display. So probably a couple years down the road, if it even happens, but I can see dual displays on iOS coming too. So we'll all be multi-window developers one day.
Yeah. Well, we were talking before the show, Brandon and I, about his last trip to Seoul, Korea. And I was saying how I have been watching nothing but Korean shows on Netflix for the past 3 months. I still don't know enough Korean to be useful, but they product place Samsung Fold devices everywhere. And I found myself really wanting one. And I'm like, man, I am being... This is working on me, this stuff.
That's how they get you.
All right, I have some PRs to work through. We're half an hour in, so I want to do this pretty quickly so we can talk to Brandon about GitTrends. The first thing I want to call attention to is that the Xamarin.Forms team, who is responsible for .NET MAUI, now let's call them the MAUI team, are working now exclusively on the .NET MAUI repo for MAUI things. Previously, they were doing work in a branch in Xamarin.Forms and then syncing things up to the .NET MAUI repo. But as you can see here, if I go to the pull requests, current pull requests, the work is happening. The work is happening. So you can come over here and start contributing. And so that's what I wanted to highlight here real quick as I go into the PR section of the stand-up. Is that we are drafting PR guidelines. And so these describe kind of what the expectations are for pull requests. And we're talking about also providing an example, right, of how you can create your first pull request for a handler. Handlers in particular, as I mentioned before, we want to do bite-sized properties. So there is a backlog right here. It is on the projects board, and it's linked from that handler guide that I was just on. And so you can see the different handlers here that are teed up and ready to go. So one PR would be made to do is text prediction enabled for entries. Like that's all you're responsible to do when you claim this particular to-do item. So we feel like that's, again, going to be easier to review and also hopefully very easy for somebody to pick that up and get it done. I'm planning on doing that myself in the next day or two. Brandon, I challenge you to do one as well. And Maddy, although Maddy's got, you're busy. Not that Brandon's not busy. You start saying these things and you're like, well, I'm just digging holes.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I'm very excited that transition has taken place. Really looking forward to seeing those of you who are watching and anybody else who would like to be a contributor, come on over here and help us out. Help yourself out. All right. So let's talk about some pull requests. I went and looked at the community toolkit, and I was really pleased to see some things that I've been waiting for. The segmented view controller from Hussein, he's been working on this thing for quite a while. It was PR'd originally to Xamarin.Forms, and because of transitions and things like that, it didn't work out. But here it is for the Xamarin Community Toolkit. So love this thing. He's put a lot of love and attention into this. And I mean, just the PR itself makes me smile because it's so well documented, it seems. So check that out. It is not yet merged. It's open. So now is your opportunity to complain and provide feedback or guidance. But I think this one looks really good. So hopefully we can get that in soon. All right. CFun1 has been very active on all of our channels, Discord in particular, and over here on the repository. So thank you very much for all of your help and contributions and general pleasantness. We've got some controls in here, and I love seeing that the controls are already getting better. So this is the shield control. And let's see here. Looks like most of the good information is on the original issue opened. But the shield is those little badge, almost like this guy over here, these little labels, right? And so being able to customize the background color is nice. So that's cool. Thank you for that. Side menu view, if only to put Andrei Misukovic's face on the screen. He is an MVP now. Woo! So Microsoft MVP, way to go, Andrei. Very excited for him. And he has been a huge contributor to the Xamarin.Forms community for a long time, for years now. And so that's a well-deserved recognition for him. And here he is adding the state to side menu view, which I haven't used side menu view yet. I imagine it probably looks a lot like flyout menu. But I need to give that a look because sometimes you don't necessarily need it for a flyout. You just want to be able to throw something onto the side of the screen. So that's cool. Let's see what else we have here. A couple more converter samples. You don't just have to, you don't have to necessarily commit new work or fix bugs. You can add samples. So wanted to highlight this work from Hacktivist. Come on up here. Noor El Ghafi in Cairo, Egypt. Love it. I love seeing so many different countries and places around the world when we were just waiting for the intro music. It's always fun. Adding a command parameter to user stopped typing behavior. Somebody tweeted about this particular behavior over the week, and some people were surprised to know that it even existed. If you want to know when somebody stopped typing into the entry field so that you can do something like waiting, maybe you're waiting to save it or waiting to kick off some validation process, this is the behavior for you. And good news, you now have the ability to do a command parameter with it. So that's great. Thank you, John, for that work from the Netherlands. All right, what is this? Oh, the enum Boolean converter. So lots of converters are in here, and this is one of the reasons that I like to include this in all of my projects, because I hate writing converters. It just feels like I'm writing a bunch of boilerplate code, and why should I have to write it in the first place? So here it is. And Brandon's like, what's a converter? I write all of my code in C#.
That's right.
So, but if you're a XAML developer using XAML, then this is very useful for you. So thank you, Eugene, for this one. Let's see, fixing null checks in the iOS Forms camera view. I wanted to call attention to this one because did you know that there's a camera view in the Community Toolkit? I love this. It was originally created in the Xamarin.Forms repo and then ported over here from one of our internal developers who was in the Ukraine, I think. But now it's getting love and improvements. So Mikhail added this null check to improve the camera view. And there's several other camera view PRs in here as well. Please go check that out and use it if you need a camera view. I find that like half or more of the apps I do at some point or another, I end up adding a camera view to it. Javier has also been busy. He's always busy. He is on the internal Forms MAUI team. You'll see him everywhere, but he always does some really nice animation things. These are not yet merged, but they're sitting here. They're waiting for some love and some attention, apparently from Gerald. Somebody give Gerald a nudge. Say, man, what's going on here? Smash that merge button. But super easy, useful ways to trigger animations in your apps. So I love anything that makes it easier to introduce good, meaningful interactions in your application. In addition to those triggers, we have some behaviors. And the one that stood out to me was this heart animation behavior, because I was like, what the heck is a heart animation? And it's this one right here. It gives you that boom, 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 boom animation. That's pretty nice. So, just couldn't be easier. You throw these behaviors onto your control or your layout or whatever it is you need to animate. And then when something meaningful happens, whether it's a validation or, I think one that's the canonical example is when you fail your login attempt, it does the shake screen, the shake login. So, all right. And it doesn't just have to be code or samples. It could be documentation. So Gerald the man himself, is writing documentation. Someday he'll make a great program manager because he can come over and write documentation for us. So please, we're so excited and just happy in general that these things are being documented, but there's more documentation to be written. So if you're looking for an opportunity to do that, and you can clearly, concisely describe what something is and does, then please add it. And Nate in the Twitch chat says, why not just write it yourself? The documentation, I'm going to take that to mean, I think that, yeah, everybody who's submitting PRs, you get first crack at documenting your own stuff. Sometimes it's better actually that somebody else documents it, because you can catch when something doesn't make sense. We love Dave Britch for that, because he documents all the forums stuff. And he's one of our best issue openers. He tells us when something doesn't make sense. And last but not least, this one I think caught my attention because, Brandon, isn't observable range collection yours? Didn't you do this, or was this Mott's?
Nope, I believe that was Mott's.
So I've noticed, though, that you've been very active over here. And so I was like, oh, I hope that more Brandon stuff makes it over here, because I don't know that I would ever properly do async await without Brandon's help. But this is improving the observable range collection with an add enumerable T. So cool stuff happening here as well. So it's not just UI related things. It's not just behaviors and triggers, but you also have very useful C# things like the observable range collection. All right. So there were many more pull requests in the community toolkit that I didn't touch on. A lot of bug fixes, a lot of quality improvements. I know that they're racing towards another release. And we're soon going to be talking about how we can bring all the community toolkit things to .NET MAUI as well, so that we, just continue to grow into the future. So there you go, Maddy. Those are my pull requests. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now.
A lot of good ones going on lately. There's
a lot of good stuff. I know. So surely Brandon is using all of this goodness in Git Trends. Surely.
Of course.
So Brandon, what is Git Trends?
Oh, yes. I love that segue. I did want to show one more PR.
Sure.
Because this is one, like we're just chatting about. We'll say officially one of the maintainers for the toolkit now. And I was chatting with the other maintainers just yesterday. So this is hot off the presses. And I said, what do you think about enabling nullability? It's been around since C# 8, where you can set any variable. You could basically tell the compiler to let you know if there's a possible null reference exception coming. And I found it super useful when I consume libraries, because it'll tell me, does this return null or not? And then I know whether or not how to handle it in my code. So if you saw me drinking a lot of coffee this morning, it's because I was literally up till 2 a.m. working on this pull request last night, where I flipped on Nullable for all the projects. So the unit test project, the toolkit project, the markup project, all the samples. And I had to go to bed, obviously, because I wanted to be here with everybody this morning. But when I first turned it on, there was over 3,000 errors, because I turned on warnings as errors, as you do. And got it down to 252 last night. So going to be making more progress on this. Well, today, this week, hopefully we'll have no more null reference exceptions in the toolkit, but we'll see. We got to get through it. It's a bit like whack-a-mole if you've ever turned on Nullable. Like you fix it here by either adding a question mark to making it null, or removing one, or adding a null check, but then the code over here throws an error. So you're kind of chasing your tail for a little bit until finally you get it in a nice working state. But yeah, let's talk about Git Trends. So before we jump into anything, I figure I'll just show it off here on the screen.
Yeah.
Because what is it? Well, it's a mobile app. It's available in the iOS and Android app stores. I've got a link to it here in the repo. And it's a way for you to monitor your GitHub repos. And this was an idea that I came up with selfishly about maybe 2 years ago, because I have a couple hundred open source repos now. Not all of them are active. Some of them are just literally for bug reports, but the ones that are active, I want to make sure that they stay up to date. And so I one day kind of realized there was a repo that I hadn't touched in a couple years that was getting 10 views or 10 unique viewers a week. And I was like, oh, wow, people are looking at this code. I should probably at least update the NuGet packages, or update C# or .NET. But the problem was I had no idea. So I put this app together, Git Trends, that will pull down all of your GitHub repos and show you all the stats on them. And ironically, it is trending today. So we put a little trending tag here and send you a push notification if there's a spike in views. So if I, for example, click on Git Trends here, we'll see that we got our views, our clones, unique views, unique clones, and this little spike here is why it's letting me know that the app is trending. And if I had to guess, it's because we're about to push out another release. We're about to get version 2.1 out the door. But before I show you what's new in 2.1, the other cool things in the app, you can swipe here and see your star history. So kind of encourage you to keep up the great work. You can also, I don't know if it'll be able to zoom out. The simulators aren't great with zooming. It's just off the chart. Dang. But yeah, you can zoom out. You can see the full star history. We kind of scope it here. So this is the last, I think, 100 stars. And then this button up here will show you the referring sites. So you saw all these views and clones, like where are these people coming from, right? That's always one of my questions. Like, did somebody write a blog post and link to my app? Because all of a sudden I have 100 views. And so referring sites will show you where the folks are coming from. Looks like we got some traffic coming from Reddit, some other GitHub pages, my blog, Code Traveler. So yeah, it's a great way to keep up with all your GitHub repos. I mean, I check it every day. I know I'm a little biased. Another cool thing is I got this total button down here where it'll show you your total stars, views. You can sort it by whatever. So maybe you're concerned about issues on your repos. You can sort it by your issues. But the new feature coming soon is this about page. So we've had the app in the App Store for about a year now, and we wanted to give a shout out to all the awesome contributions from both the community in terms of literal contributions. So I couldn't have done it. Luis, I saw you. Luis Poolhouse, saw you in the comments. Couldn't have done it without you, man. Luis actually designed this whole app. He and I have been working on it together twice a week for, oh gosh, correct me in the comments, Luis, but what, 6 months? We've been live streaming on the .NET Dominicana Twitch channel, putting all this together, both designs and then implementing it in code. And so this pulls down from the GitHub APIs, all the contributors. There's Jared, Almir, Carrie, Matthew, everybody that's contributed, and also all the libraries we're using in the app. So things like App Center, things like that's Azure Functions, James Montemagno's store review plugin that was actually added by Samir as a pull request. So a little inception there, but yeah, all these awesome libraries that I would recommend to anybody. I wanted to highlight them here. You can click on any of these, and it'll take you to the NuGet page so you can learn more about it. This one's kind of a cool one. I use this for my unit test, so you can mock up your HTTP responses. So Richard, thank you, because I couldn't have done it without you. But yeah, so what I recommend is going to GitTrends.com, GITTRENDS.com. That actually just forwards you to the GitHub page. So if I type in, for example, GitTrends.com, I don't actually have a website for it. I'm a mobile developer, not a web developer, but that forwards you to the GitHub page where you can find the App Store download buttons. And you can even check out, you can open up feature requests, you can open up pull requests. I've actually got a couple, actually I should highlight this too. So, both Carrie and Veronica have contributed, support for their languages. So Carrie speaks German, and you can actually translate this app to be all in Deutsch, or, Veronica is contributing the Russian translation. So we have support. I think we're at 8 languages. I'd love to get more. If anybody else watching knows more languages, like we have users in all these other areas. I'll take obviously any language, but for example, we have a lot of users in China. It'd be great to have Chinese translations. And but anyways, 2.1's coming soon. Thank you everybody who's been contributing. And speaking of Luis, I want to give one more shout out to him because he has this whole blog post on how, I would say but it was all Luis, single-handedly redesigned Git Trends, because the app didn't look anything like it does today when I made it. It was, I like to say it was very functional, but it didn't look great. The color palette was terrible. We didn't have cool shadows. I mean, now we have light theme and dark theme, so you can go whoop.
Ooh.
This is Sharpnado. Speaking of Sharpnado, material frames. Yeah, we added in the swipe view so you can favorite your apps if you want. So all these cool things, and 99% of it was Luis. And so thank you so much. And if you're curious how he did it, he documented it in, it's a 5-part blog post series. So it's very, very in depth. But we teased it a little bit earlier, so I want to make sure we show it off. Yeah, Git Trends is all in C#. We don't use any XAML. That's not to say that XAML's bad, but it's kind of my origin story is I never used XAML in a prior life. And so when I joined Xamarin, because I used to work at Xamarin, which is how I made it to Microsoft, because Microsoft acquired Xamarin. So now I get to hang out with you guys all day. But when I joined Xamarin, I'd never written XAML. And when I had heard about Xamarin, I fell in love with it because of the whole value proposition that everything can be done in C#. And so you can make iOS apps, Android apps in C#. And I knew C# and I was like, great, I don't have to learn Objective-C or Java or Kotlin. And so around the time I joined Xamarin was when Xamarin.Forms first came out. And actually, fun fact, when Xamarin.Forms first came out, it was all in C#. And so when I started learning Xamarin.Forms, I just kind of continued on that C# journey. The XAML support came out, but for me, it was like, well, I already know how to do it in C#, so I'm good. And but what I wanted to highlight is the Xamarin Community Toolkit, the C# markup extension. Let's see if we can show it off in the app here. This one. So Xamarin.communitytoolkit.markup. This is just an amazing NuGet package if you also create your Xamarin.Forms UIs in C#, because it gives you this fluent syntax that we see here on the screen. So for example, this is that brand new about page that we were just looking at. And what we can do now, and this is something I actually love, and it's a pretty big plus over XAML, if I'm being honest, because when we create our grid now, with the C# markup extensions, we can actually define our rows and columns. So I can give a name to the columns in my grid. I can give a name to the rows in my grid. And I don't know about anybody else, but this was such a pain for me before, because I would just have to remember column 0 is going to be the left padding, and then the statistics go in column 2, but column 2 is the third column. And it would just always mess me up. And I would always get it wrong the first time. But now we can choose, or we can name our columns. So this is just an enum I've created for my columns and rows. And then when we go to add our children to the grid, so we also get these cool things like center and expand. We can set our margins all in this fluent syntax. But what I love is I can just say .row, row.title, row span 3, and then the column is column.icon. And instead of having to remember, that GitTrends image needs to go in row 0, column 1, we can just call it out by name. And it makes it super, super helpful, super easy for me to keep everything in line. And then because we also called out converters earlier, this is the contributor data template. So this is the data template I'm using for this contributor collection right here. So it's just the avatar image and a label. But what's really cool is the converters, you can also do them in line. So you don't have to create an I-value converter or whatever the interface is called. I don't even remember because that's how long I haven't used one. Literally in line. Let's see, maybe I zoom out just a little bit. Yeah, so this is my label binding. So I'm binding to my view model, and this view model contains the names of all the contributors, and their GitHub calls it the logins. I call it the GitHub username, but so it's going to display their GitHub username here. So just like you see, mine's BR Minnick, Polholos Louise, Bryce Freha. But I wanted to add just that little @ sign before it, so it looks like the username. And so with the converter, I just told it that in the view model, the source is a string, the destination is also a string because this is my label's text property. And so I get that login from the view model, and then I just slap a little ampersand on it, and that's it. And we've converted it. And it couldn't be any easier. So big fan of C# markup extensions. Highly recommend everybody checking them out. But if you want to see the production app, this is all open source. Highly recommend everybody coming in here. You can open up feature requests, You can open up pull requests. If you know more languages, I'd love to add more languages too.
Yeah, you've got some offers here. You've got a Norwegian offer from Andreas.
Yes.
And then
yes,
you've
bring
got,
it in.
Let's see, somebody's offering Turkish, Ismail.
I love it.
You've got another one, Arabic from Yasim.
No way. Yeah, so
it's coming.
I'll tell you this, because we are going to push out version 2.1 this week. So if you get a pull request in with the languages by, we'll say the end of the week, by Friday, we'll make sure that gets in version 2.1. For anybody who's interested, everything's in resx files. So we have a whole suite of resx files here. So
now, can you edit resx files? There's no editor in VS Mac for it, right? It's just raw text.
Yeah, it's just the XML. But what I do, like when I create new ones, I just kind of copy paste it. But yeah, it's not too bad. It's a little clunky because I don't know who uses XML anymore, but
all the XAML developers.
Well, that's XAML, totally different.
Yeah, completely different. What's the X stand?
Extensible.
I know.
C#. That's all I gotta know. But yeah, if you can get that, the Norwegian translations, Turkish translations, if you can get them in really soon, we can merge them into 2.1. If not, no worries. We can do a 2.2. We can do as many releases as we need to. So yeah, thanks so much again to everybody in the community. Huge shout out to Luis for helping me make this app. Couldn't have done it without you, man. And yeah, please check it out. Let me know what you think. Give it 5 stars on the App Store. And
you have 5 stars on the App Store. I just went and looked. So you've got 5. Good job.
Likewise, I just looked on the Google Play Store. Downloaded it, gave it my 5 stars. Very exciting.
We did get 1-star review on the Google Play Store, and I responded to him because his complaint's valid, but there's nothing I can do about it. But when you connect your GitHub account, it tells you the Oauth Scope that the app needs, and GitHub scopes haven't been updated in ever, and for some reason there's no read-only access to public libraries or public repos. And so the smallest scope I could do was read and write. I promise the app doesn't write anything to your repos. It's all open source. You can check out the code if you don't want to take my word for it. But yeah, he left me a 1-star review because of that. And I was like, I agree. It shouldn't.
Send a tweet to Nat and he'll get it taken care of.
Seriously. Yeah. No, I mean, it's amazing. I just realized my most starred repo is actually one of Dave's.
Is that right?
So that's exciting. I don't know. I started using GitHub for my homework in college. Like that was all.
Really?
That stuff's not interesting. So now I'm like, ooh, like I should really delete all of those things. But
I hadn't actually seen the trending feature, but my control gallery repo is trending.
Ooh,
nice.
So I don't know why.
If you can.
I mean, I looked at the referring.
You can check out the referring sites. Oh,
no, I did, and it's GitHub is referring, so I don't know. GitHub's referring.
People must be linking to you on other repos.
Yeah, it could be. So I'll have to go check that out. But I thought it was interesting, and I have, to your point, you see something's trending, and you're like, have I updated it recently? What version of Xamarin.Forms is it on? Oh my gosh, is it on 2.3? That's so old. And actually, I did find one of those not too long ago that I updated. Cool. Well, we're out of time, but I was going to ask you more questions, but I'm just going to go look at your code now because I'm super interested to see how you're handling all your styling and theming.
Ooh, yeah. I kind of reinvented the wheel, so I'm very curious to see what you're talking about with Maui and the styles.
Yeah.
Because we might have to do some porting. I mean, we're definitely going to port it to Maui, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, whatever you've got should just work, but because we're not changing the infrastructure of how styles are applied or anything. But there are strategies around, like the blog post from earlier was that Luis Matos. There's strategies. You can do it this way, that way. Nobody does it the same. No matter how much designers want us to standardize, everything's always different. So.
True.
Yeah, and in C#, it's also easy because I can just create a class. So if I want to create a custom class with a certain style, I can just inherit from, say, label and create my own custom label. And it's basically the same thing as a style, but
yeah.
What
No,
way to do it?
Well, I was actually, when I was working in my resource dictionary and the XAML styles, I was thinking to myself, why do I have to keep opening setters and doing all this other stuff? Couldn't I just create a prototypical label or prototypical button that represents that style? And that's it, right? I suppose.
Yeah.
Somehow. I mean, isn't that really what subclassing it is? But I don't know.
Pretty fancy. Well, Brandon, thanks so much for coming on. This is great. I am like so excited to go A, poke around my old GitHub skeletons, and B, poke around your repo and see what we can dig out. And of course, the links, I will send the URL list link one more time as I put up the well, that's Brandon's link. I'll send that too. But as I put up the closing video, but of course, it was amazing to see you all this month, and we'll see you in April, the first Thursday, which I think is like the first, April 1st. April 1st.
Is it really?
April
Oh,
Fools.
wow.
man. Dave, we have to think of something. Yeah. So, all righty, everybody. We will see you next time and enjoy March.
Cool. Thanks.
Bye.
See ya.